So who is to blame for the rising fuel prices, the center, states, or the war in Ukraine? We're joined today by a very special guest, one of the country's most cerebral finance ministers, Tamil Nadu's finance minister, Dr. Palanivel Thiaga Rajan, joins me about the great oil shock and how India can navigate it. At the moment, there's a sense of inevitability over the fuel price hike. 8 hikes in 9 days, and the government or the center's version is that, look, there's a conflict in Russia, Ukraine, and because of that, fuel prices have risen globally. India cannot be an exception. They've gone up by as much as 72% between November and March. Do you agree? Fuel price hike at the moment inevitable given the global oil price situation?
First of all, thanks for having me and the question. Look, I think that you have to break this into 2 or 3 parts. The first part is the timing of the hikes. The timing of the hikes are extremely suspicious and extremely political. This is what a chart of the oil price looks like. I agree that it's gone up 72%. It was trading around $65 in December, and it went up as much as 120, more than 72%, and then it came down to as little as 95 towards the end of, towards the middle of March, and now it's been volatile. My point is, through all that time, because of the state elections, the union government, which plays politics with everything, kept petrol prices and diesel prices flat. So if the logic is that your price rise in the pump is a function of crude oil prices, well, when crude oil prices almost doubled, you did nothing. You didn't even move the price 1 paisa because of political consideration. So what do you say? Shameless politicizing of activity, including pump prices, is blatant. And anybody who can read a chart can see that. So now what has happened?
I'm going to stop you to say all governments do that. I'm going to stop you to say the UPA government would also do that before elections. It is now standard practice in India that during that election period, fuel prices are not touched. That is the reality. Yeah. Whether that's with the state government will not do that, nor will the center.
Yes and no. I don't think I agree with you. No, we can agree to disagree. I don't think I'll agree with you. I think the UPA government dealt with prices multiple ways. They issued oil bonds. They made the oil companies take losses. In Tamil Nadu, for example, here's the track record. The DMK government cut VAT 2 or 3 times. The ADMK government never cut it. They only raised it. So, you may find moral equivalence. I absolutely do not. So, let's agree to disagree there. My data doesn't reconcile with your view of the world. But let's leave that aside. Now the prices are actually on the way down from 120, right? From the peak of around 120. Now we find the prices are increasing every day. So this is now pent up kind of pricing that is, and we have this perverse situation, right? I mean, if we look at it over 7 or 8 years, it is the same. When crude oil dropped from $120, $118, $130 a barrel from the 2012-13 peaks, all the way down to $30, $35 a barrel, the BJP government was keeping on raising the taxes. And so, it's like a heads I win, tails you lose situation for this government. When crude oil prices drop, they raise the taxation. When crude oil prices rise, they raise the price. So one way or the other, the price only seems to go up and up and up and up. And there's no ever, kind of a give back to the people.
So what's the solution? Let's be honest. Between November and March, oil price companies took a huge hit because the government, because of elections, perhaps decided that they didn't want to pass on the burden of high oil prices to the consumer. So the oil price companies took the hit between November and March. What, therefore, is the solution? State governments like yourself, are you willing to bring down your taxes? Some of the highest taxes today are in non-BJP ruled states. I look at Maharashtra #1, Rajasthan #2, Tamil Nadu also at the moment. You're selling what? 106.69 rupees litre petrol, 96.76 rupees a litre diesel. So every state needs to raise taxes, as does the center. What's the solution?
I'm sorry, Rajdeep, you have a completely different perspective on this than I do. Let me tell you why. This is the chart that shows which state is at what level of taxation. We were in the middle of the pack. This is the chart that says what was the per litre taxation at the end of the UPA regime and what was it before the 10 rupee cut. At the end of the UPA regime, there was about 9 rupees of taxation on excise, shared to the state's excise by the UPA government. And prior to this 10 rupee cut, it was 27 rupees 90 paisa, almost all cess not shared to the UPA government. So this kind of simplistic approach where you don't discriminate between black and white, and you just talk about pump price without talking about who is the villain here, who is the guy. Listen, there are no easy solutions, right? There's not like some genius whirlwind financial whiz kid that can solve this problem. The chickens are coming home to roost. We have been saying this for the last 5 years. When you keep on relying on indirect taxes, when you keep on shifting the burden away from progressive direct taxes towards regressive indirect taxes, and that too towards fuel taxes, it is like digging your own grave. Sooner or later, oil prices will rise. When they rise, you're going to find yourself stuck. These are the exact words that I spoke in the assembly in 2018, 2019, when the ADMK government raised the VAT. And I said, you are doing this when we are at the end of a commodity cycle that has brought the crude oil price from 120, 125 down to 30, 35. What happens when it goes back to 100, as it surely will? Will you then sell? These were the exact words I used in the assembly. I'll send you the assembly proceedings. What happens when crude oil goes back to...
So what's the solution?
Hey, if you
are you saying to be honest about a deregulated oil market? Are you saying that be honest about a deregulated oil market? Forget about elections.
100% of the blame of this, 100% of the blame of this starts with bad taxation policy at the union government. If you decide that you're going to raise the taxes from poor and middle class people through regressive taxes, through GST, through fuel tax, and not through income taxes, not through progressive taxes, then sooner or later you're going to find yourself in this bind. Right? There are no easy solutions. There's not like some, silver bullet. You have bad policies. You have had bad policies for a long time. You've gotten away with it because people were not smart enough to realize, crude oil kept going your way. Now crude oil is going the other way.
Is bringing fuel under GST a silver bullet? Is bringing fuel under GST a silver bullet?
No problem. If the union government removes the cesses and surcharges on petrol and diesel, we are happy for it to go under GST. No problem. But GST itself has some problem, as you must realize, right? The GST rate on textiles, on bricks, on bicycles, on all these things are 12%, 80%, 5% going up to 12%. So what the common man buys is taxed at this level. What is the GST rate on diamonds? What is the GST rate on gold? Right? It's 0.25%. It's basically zero. So you have a government that has taxation policy that favors the rich at the expense of the middle class and the poor. And the consequences of that are being felt at the pump and in the street every day. I mean, what's shocking in that? You get the policy outcome that your policy dictates.
No. So give me a solution. Given the stretch on revenues, both at the center and in the states, give me a solution that you think is workable at the moment. Is there a workable solution?
The workable solution is that the union government that has only the right for direct taxation. None of us have the right to direct taxation. That's the way the constitution is written. It used to be at the end of the UPA regime, 55, 56% direct taxation and 44, 45% indirect taxation. That is close to the OECD goal of fairness, which is 60% direct progressive taxation revenue and 40% indirect. We are now exactly skewed the opposite way. Now about 55% of all tax revenue comes from indirect taxation from the poor and the middle class. And you have very little coming from the progressive taxation. So the philosophy of the government drives its taxation policy. The taxation policy drives the pump price. So I completely agree that these prices are they're not just inflation, they're not just unsustainable or impactful on people's pockets. They are going to be hugely inflationary because fuel prices are input costs to agriculture, to logistics, to fishermen, to every industry you can think of. Directly, fuel and diesel costs are input costs. If these costs go up,
so you're saying
the price at the retail goes up.
you're saying revise the tax structure to reduce the dependence on indirect taxes, on cesses, on surcharges. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. At 10% of what is
And
the
if the center does it, states will follow? No, no. And if the
states
center
don't,
does it,
no, no, the
states will
states,
follow?
Rajdeep, states don't have any direct taxation power, period. It's not like America. It's not like China. We have almost zero direct taxation power. We only have indirect taxation.
The various value... Sure. So the various value-added taxes that you put on at the state level, you're saying if the center revises its policy, states will take the cue and follow. Am I correct?
Let me say two ways. The states in some cases led before the center cut by 10 rupees. Tamil Nadu, under the Chief Minister's guidance, we cut by 3 rupees on petrol because we have 2.6 crore bike users and we were hard pressed to distinguish which diesel gets used by buses, which gets used by personal transport and which gets used by, there are no small bikes running on diesel. So we made a conscious choice. But let me go the other way. At the end of the day, even when the union cut the taxes, all our taxes went down because some of our taxes are ad valorem taxes. For example, when the union cut the taxes by 10 rupees, our taxes on petrol went down by 1 rupee 80 paisa because our tax is 18% on top of the price, including union taxes. You see what I mean? It's an automatic cascading effect. If you bring your tax down, our tax on the total price automatically goes down as well. So we have cut 3 rupees plus 180, 480. And I just want to point out that this is the taxation. I mean, you can't read it, it's too small. But at least the DMK government has history of cutting 3 times. Once on 1/3/2011, once on 6/6/2008, and once on 12/6/2006. We have 3 times reduced the taxation on petrol and diesel because the prices were going up. So it's not new to us. And we cut it in June when we came back to power, when the oil prices were not going up. Right? So we have a history. We do what we need to do.
In conclusion, therefore, do you believe it is possible for center and states to work together and find a solution? At the moment, all the blame is going on what's happening in Russia and Ukraine with oil prices up. But once that's over, do you believe it's possible to rationalize the situation?
That doesn't make any sense. Oil prices peaked before the petrol prices and diesel prices at the pump started rising. This is the petrol price chart. Flat, 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 flat. Election drops, goes up. This is the diesel price chart. Flat, 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 flat. 81 days, and then 10 days it rises. So what I'm saying is, this is them trying to play catch up. Again, there are no short-term solutions. If you have a taxation policy that is fundamentally based on taxing the poor and the middle class and consumption and regressive taxes, indirect taxes, these are the risks that you face on a daily basis. You escape in only one scenario. If oil prices drop, then you escape the consequences. But if oil prices don't drop, and if they stay high like they did, let's say between 2007, 8 and 2011, 12, 13, you got a serious problem. Your profound choices about where you should take the money from, your profound economic philosophy of relative taxation, direct versus indirect, progressive versus regressive, is coming home to roost. These are the consequences of your actions and your policies.
I will ask you one last time. If the DMK was part of a UPA-led government at the center, you faced a similar choice. You had a major election coming. Be honest, cross your heart, and tell me that you would ensure that oil prices did not rise, even if global prices rose. Cross your heart and tell me. The truth is, politics overtakes economics in this country.
If you ask me a question, let me give an answer. I would say that there has never been in the history of India a government that has captured all institutions, has subjugated all of them, has removed their independence and made them extensions. I'm starting with the Election Commission, the courts, or whatever you call it, and does everything for the sake of electoral victory without being able to perform and produce economic results. I'm saying that black and white.
That's not necessarily an answer to the question that I raised. My question is the fact that the moment is...
If it were up to me, I would never allow this kind of discrepancy to set in. I would never allow oil prices to double and keep without even 1 paisa rise at the pump, because it is an unsustainable discrepancy that is going to burst one day and cause you real problems. I'm an ex-markets guy. I would not allow this discrepancy to persist for this long.
Dr. Palanivel Thiaga Rajan, shooting straight as always. I appreciate your joining me, the Tamil Nadu Finance Minister. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks, Raghu.